Hi, welcome to another Digital Marketing Answered from Innovation Visual. Um, I hope you're enjoying the series of podcasts that we're putting together. Please, at the start, just want to remind you to like, subscribe, and please, if you enjoy it, provide a review. Helps other people discover it. And today's content that we're going to be talking about is the power of HubSpot's Content Hub. And I'm really happy to be joined today by Chris. Chris, welcome and introduce yourself.
Hi, Tim. Yeah, hi guys. My name's Chris, and I head up our Martech team here at Innovation Visual. So happy to be here talking about HubSpot.
Indeed, indeed. Yet another HubSpot thing. We do love it. So let's just get straight into the meat of it.
Yeah,
Content Hub. What is HubSpot's Content Hub, Chris?
yeah. So another new hub from HubSpot. I seem to remember doing one of these before with you, saying they don't come along very often, but here we are again doing another one. But this one is
Yeah,
slightly different because it replaces CMS Hub, which we had before. So
yeah.
Content Hub is now HubSpot's all-in-one solution for website building, hosting, and a number of other great things we're going to chat about today.
Yeah. So it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because CMS Hub was good, had some really
Mm.
great features. Probably my two favorite was things like the A/B or multivariate testing being like completely integral across the whole site build that you do, and also the smart content zones, which I just think personalization it's so important.
Yeah.
But Content Hub is an amazing CMS, but it's more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to say is all the stuff we loved about CMS Hub. So like, all the stuff you're talking about there, the personalization, the A/B testing, that's all still there. So that's great news because I think the biggest power of HubSpot hosting your website is the fact that you have your first party data all in one place with your website, which allows you to do all that cool stuff, all the personalization and dynamic content, things like that. So all of that still exists. What Content Hub has brought in, and obviously people will have heard a lot of talk around AI recently, but they've brought in a kind of suite of AI tools built into the software. And we'll talk a little bit about some of these in depth, but essentially these have been brought in a way that they're woven through the tools you already know how to use in a way that's just going to enhance things like efficiency, productivity, and just start to connect your team and your marketers a little bit better with your customers and your prospects. So it's quite an exciting step forward, I'd say.
Okay, let's dive in then,
Mm.
and let's just have a chat. I think before we get to the magic sparkle dust of the AI stuff, let's actually just recap because some people might not have heard our podcast on CMS Hub. So
Yep.
let's talk about the some of the core content management features because I think it's worth emphasizing right at the start. It's a really great, easy to use platform for marketeers to build out web content, isn't it?
It is. So obviously HubSpot came from their background of, being able to host blogs and things as part of their marketing tools. And that ease of use of being able to get content live on a website is the fundamentals of why HubSpot's such a good CMS. So if you compare it against something like WordPress, for example, we really are talking about an all-in-one place where your team can host content. SSL certificate can be in there. You've got all your updates going to be run for you all in one place. But on top of that, it's also a really streamlined, flexible, and powerful CMS. We've got the ability to kind of have password protective pages and membership functionality. There's a lot going on within the CMS element of Content Hub that actually, before Content Hub came along, quite a lot of people would have struggled to compete against what HubSpot's offering was in this area, let alone the fact that it's built on top of your CRM. So you've got all of your data there. Again, going back to that personalization, the dynamic content that that enables.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people don't appreciate that ease of use at the administration part of a system is absolutely vital for an
It's so
up-to-date and
important.
effective website. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important. But you can have the best tooling in the world. If your team can't use it, you're just spending money on software for no reason. So that
Yeah.
ease of
Or
use is
developers.
really important. Or yeah, or developers to
Yeah.
come and do it for you, and then
Yeah.
you are permanently locked into that requirement to have developers come and make minor changes. And that's
Yeah.
not what we have here. We have a system that your team can use, can get content live. They're not having to
Yeah.
kind of rely on external resource, and I think that's really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, and I think it's worth also saying about like the page builders, particularly the sites that we've built, and when we put it together, the page building is really easy from a just a normal marketeer perspective. Once the components are in there and you can slot it in, but also the code it creates, it's not that nasty stuff that you get from some of these builders like Elementor, or even
It's,
even the Gutenberg update on WordPress. It's still, there's still some issues around it, and also brand control. And I just love the fact that you can really lock down control of the brand, but at the same time have it completely flexible in terms of you don't need to use, a product page doesn't look like X, or you don't have to have two or three product or service page variants. You can literally go, okay, I want that component there, let's move that around. Actually, rather than having that comparison thing there, let's put an image
yeah.
and some text. It's really
No,
great, isn't it?
absolutely. And that kind of locking down the brand, that segues beautifully into one of the AI features that they've got in Content Hub now, because they've brought this
Go on,
brand
talk
voice.
to go on, go to brand voice. You
Yeah,
love it,
well,
don't
so
you?
I do love it. And I think it's a great example of a really simple feature done really well. So a lot of people will be fairly familiar now with Gen AI and the ability to go through and do things like change tone of voice, rewrite things. We've seen it quite a lot across a number of the different tools. And hopefully, people have seen stuff already on Digital Marketing Answered, but hopefully people are fairly familiar with what's currently possible with some of the Gen AI tools out there.
Yeah.
What I think HubSpot is now doing differently is applying that in a way within the tools that makes it very simple to use. So anywhere you can enter content in now within HubSpot, you have the opportunity to be able to kind of hover over and get those fundamental choices to do things like rewriting a new tone of voice, expand, and so on. So you've got that functionality throughout the system. What brand voice does is it allows you to go in at the implementation of your HubSpot portal
Mm.
and essentially train it. This is what our brand voice is. Feed it some content, give it some rules. It gives you some ideas back on what it kind of categorizes your brand voice as, and you can tweak that as well.
Yeah.
And then anytime anyone in your team is working on content, that now becomes one of the options within your AI tool, rewrite in our brand voice.
Yeah.
So if people just want to quickly kind of go, actually, we need to look at this and go, is this really on brand? Is this the right tone? They've got that there to
Mm.
use throughout the system. And I think that's a really intelligent way of using Gen AI instead of just
Yeah.
going straight down the route of write me content.
Th-
And that's just
Yeah.
built into the system.
I mean, for me, there's two things about that which are really powerful. So, this podcast's all about marketing leaders and things. And marketing leaders want to put guardrails around the use of Gen AI, but they don't want to, impede great creativity and impede their team from doing great work and being efficient. So I think brand voice is brilliant because effectively you're building in guardrails then, because you're
Yeah.
saying, well, actually anything that you use the AI to build, it's gonna create that with a reference to brand voice that you've defined and that you've fixed in there. So I think number one, that's really important. And then secondly, I think that in where we are in the world of digital marketing at the moment, brand's really important. Like, things are being commoditized. There's loads of noise out there, even more than before. Creating the right perception and the right brand in the minds of your consumers, because effectively your brand exists in the mind of your customers, is all important. And again, it's another smart tool that helps you do that and ensures consistency. Because even without Gen AI, we had sometimes content going out, that always it wasn't always aligned and things like this. Actually, now we can help that alignment, which I think is going to become increasingly important.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, we'll talk a little bit about some of the other tools as well, but the way that HubSpot is developing as a platform, its reach is beyond what is just contained within HubSpot. So we're talking social media, email, and so on. So
Yeah.
it's also about making sure your content is consistent across lots of different channels. So I think that's important to say. We're not just talking here about people writing a blog or a website page.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, we dived into the AI bit. We skipped over smart content,
Yes.
and we skipped over A/B testing. We'll ignore A/B testing for the moment. People will just have to listen to the listen to the podcast or read one of our other blogs about the importance of that. But I think the smart content thing, we should just dwell a moment on that, because this is starting to get into the integration like that HubSpot provides, and the term is, I think it's crafted together, not cobbled together, that
Exactly.
that is talked about. So tell us about how Content Hub plugs into everything from our CRM to things like sales function and stuff like that.
Yeah, so this really is the point at which competitors to HubSpot are going to struggle to match this functionality, because we are talking now about a CMS, a content management system built on top of your CRM, which basically means that at any point of whether it's creating content, whether it's delivering content, you are always sat on top of your own data. You have the ability to create segments, audiences, lists, anything you want within your data, as you would within any good CRM, but your entire website is built on top of that. So if we talk about smart content, we're essentially talking about the ability to dynamically change what visitors to your website are going to see based on data that we already know about them. So that could fundamentally be that we know nothing about them. So you might want to treat somebody landing on your homepage completely differently to how you want to treat somebody that you recognize as a returning visitor. But it can also go further than that. So if we're talking about campaigns that we're running across paid media, across social media, we've got the ability to use good old-fashioned UTM codes to track exactly where those people have come from, which campaigns, which channels they come from, and so on. And we can then use that to dynamically show them different content. Whether we're talking about ABM campaigns, so we can get really, really specific and know we're targeting a set company and therefore we're going to change our content around their vertical, their sector, or whether we're talking more B2C and actually we just want to understand the audience that the person is. Are they an existing customer that's returning to you? Do we know that they've got certain product affinity with us? In which case, let's change the content they're seeing and make it more personalized towards their journey, which it could be as simple as changing a couple of words here and there that just then resonates a bit more with where they are in their journey, or it could be a huge overhaul and change of imagery in terms of what it is they're actually seeing. And this would apply across things like the device type they're in, they're using, the country they're in, lists they belong to, and so on. So it's a really, really powerful way of being able to kind of make your website very dynamic, feel very personalized for everybody that's landing on it, and really tailor it to the right point in a customer journey and the right touch point so that it feels like it is the right place for them to be arriving on your website.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because I've been involved with a number of projects implementing CMS Hub and then onto Content Hub and things. And what's really telling is when we first implement this technology, we do the simple things like, as you say, location, customization, or device type. Device type's pretty basic. Then we go into things like, okay, do we know them? Do we not know them? And then if we know them, where are they? But what happens? It starts off simple because people don't understand the power of this, because it can be as powerful as, we know this person on our site, they're currently talking to our sales team, they are in the manufacturing sector. So when they land on our site, we won't show them blogs in this panel, we'll show them manufacturing case studies. we will show them a graphic on the page of a manufacturing situation, should we say, and it's detailed enough that you can just, I think it's just magical what you can end up doing. Swap out the video so the video is more specific to what they're looking for. If we've got a data point, whether it's explicit or implicit, against them for their need, you could tailor the explanation graphic to what's on the page to their particular sort of use case of your product or service. And so I think it's amazing. It's going to become this incremental thing that as people implement, I think until you've got it, you don't realize how powerful it is. It'd be like never having a mobile phone and then somebody giving you a mobile phone and you're going, great, I can phone people on it. And then you realize, wow, actually it's got these apps on it. It's got a calculator and it's got maps. And then you start working through to the more and more sophisticated things that you can do. And you end up getting more and more productive with it. And I think people are going to be falling over themselves, like, once they understand what they can do with this. They'll be like, wow, why would we buy anything else? Why would we implement effectively a dumb content management system for our website rather than a smart one? It'd be like saying, I know there's these cars, but I still think horses they're nice horses. I'm used to horses. I'll carry on riding one of those rather than getting a car.
No, exactly. And we already said one of the topics we're not going to go into depth on is A/B testing. But again, when you've got that functionality next door to all this, we can actually test this as a hypothesis and say, does smart content help? And we know it does. We know that people engage better with content that resonates with their journey. It's quite simple. And we've also got some great other tools that, again, still were present in CMS, but they're still worth mentioning now. We have things like chatbots. Same sort of idea. They can also be dynamically changed throughout the journey as well. And again, through A/B testing, we can see how people engage better with one thing or another. So if chatbots aren't working for somebody, we can adapt and change what we're showing them. So I think it is really, really good. And it's, people talk a lot about the empty store analogy, the idea if you walked into an empty shop and there was nothing there to greet you and there was no kind of journey for you to go on, it's an odd experience. But actually, so many websites are exactly that. You land on this static website that doesn't feel personalized or doesn't resonate, doesn't welcome you. And then, us as marketers are then surprised when people don't engage. And I think it's up to us to engage our visitors.
Yeah. So on the smart stuff, we start to talk about some of the smart stuff. I think one of the smartest things that we've got in Content Hub is Content Remix. Now, before we go into describing it, I think that one of the things that we see a lot of the time, and I'm sure a lot of marketing leaders listening to this will nod their heads when I say this, which is the need to do more and achieve more with either the same resources or even less resources. So we don't have CMOs saying, hey, we're gonna the finance guy has said that we can spend twice as much this year. It's always, we've got to hit our numbers, but budgets are tight. And can you just sort of describe to people how Content Remix, first of all, works, but also how Content Remix allows people to get more done and achieve more with less?
Yeah, so Content Remix is really cool. It's another example of how the functionality of each individual part of it might not seem new to anyone that's familiar with what's been going on in AI, but the way it's been implemented is very clever. It's really geared up for efficiency. So in a nutshell, Content Remix will allow you to take a starting point, which could be an existing blog, it could be something that you feed into the tool, but it will allow you to trigger a starting point, and then from that starting point, map out your campaigns in a kind of flow diagram approach. So if you imagine you've got an existing blog and you drop it in at the top, that will then feed the AI tools to produce maybe marketing emails, sales emails, social posts, ad copy. It can do audio files, which are extremely lifelike and very believable transcripts of that content. It can produce more blogs. It can produce landing pages, which can be built around your templates. So if you've got a template that's got 4 call outs in a particular part of the structure of the page, then the AI will understand that and it will create you 4 call outs to match that template. It allows you with a single click to produce potentially an entire omni-channel campaign, rich full of content from imagery through to audio through to content, which then, because we're working in the same platform that our website and our blogs are hosted in, it's a single click to then move that straight into the template, to show it on your web page, to show it in the blog. And I think that is fundamentally very clever, because it's, as we've said before, HubSpot is a very user-friendly interface. It now means that content creators, you might have people in your team who are great writers, who are, good at graphic design, who are, a bit more codey, but this allows anybody really to jump in and kind of go, right, map me out a campaign that I can then click and implement without leaving the platform once. And I think that's really clever.
Yeah. I mean, the way I think about it, and when I'm talking to marketing and revenue leaders about this, because I think they're also worried about a bit of the human aspects of, oh, well, I don't want my team to get demoralized that they're just becoming a cog in a wheel and all of this. I said, no, content remix. It's like, here's your marketeer, and what you're going to do is you're going to sit an assistant right next to them, right? Their personal assistant is going to help them. And they're going to say, right, okay, let's start with this great content. And then their assistant is going to go and go, okay, I've just made you a LinkedIn post. I've made you a Facebook post. I've made you a sub-blog about that title that you gave me, or maybe I suggested to you, but you refined. And so the skill of the marketeer in the team is to, just like you've got an assistant, is to make the most of your assistant by being clever, asking them the right questions, correcting them when they sort of drift away from what you're intending, and just, you can get them to do all of this stuff, and you make your great marketing people even better, but even more productive by having this AI assistant effectively sitting next to them. And as you say, it's all in the tool. So you could say, oh, well, I could drop stuff into ChatGPT and it will rewrite it for me. You could. Not very efficient. Also, it doesn't, your prompts would have to, if you're doing social posts, you'd have to continually control for things like character lengths and things like that, maybe regular hashtag. But remember, we've got brand voice as well. Brand voice is built in. So we've got this amazing tool, which is always referencing back to the brand voice. And then it's like, proof it, check it, make it, correct where necessary, reformulate where necessary, and then click, bang, it's gone, it's in there. I mean, it's just breathtaking. And I think that with the right change management around the human aspects in your team to get it employed, I think that people are going to go, wow, I love this, this makes my job better. This doesn't feel, it's not threatening. It's actually,
I'd say
wow, this.
The first time I tried it, I did kind of sit there and go, okay, that's pretty clever, because I think, we've all been exposed to quite a lot of these tools. And as I said, I don't think there's necessarily any individual part of this that is completely brand new. HubSpot have not reinvented AI as it stands, but it is a bit like having your own custom built GPT built into your CRM, which happens to also be your website. And I think that is just where all the power of this comes from. It's just that interconnected nature of all the tools.
Yeah.
With a bit of, thought given to how people want to use these tools. Realistically, if you're using an external AI assistant, or if you're using a CMS separated from your CRM, you are not giving yourself the best chance to be connected to your own data at every step to then produce good content easily.
Yeah. Okay. We could just get so excited and go down so many good rabbit holes here of content, but we don't want to create a 2-hour episode. So let's I'm just going to move the conversation on a little bit. Now, it doesn't do e-commerce. It's a well, certainly not at the point of recording anyway. But what that means is that probably Content Hub's greatest competitor is the world's most popular CMS, WordPress. But it's, unfortunately, to use the horse and the car analogy, horses used to be the most popular form of transport. They're not anymore. Can you just give people a bit of a rundown of why Content Hub from HubSpot is so much different to what you get with WordPress?
Yeah, so I think at a very fundamental level, WordPress was built on a blogging platform, and therefore most of the key functionality that you will see on a good WordPress website is down to things like plugins. Basically anything from the way your content is structured or the way your users add it to the page, simple things like being able to structure different columns on a page, and all the way through to things like chatbots or checkouts are all going to be plugins. Some might be native WordPress plugins. Mostly they'll be third-party plugins. And what that essentially means on a platform of that scale is that anytime WordPress needs updates, the plugins will need updates. Anytime there are security threats that are going to threaten WordPress, which will be often because it is a very, very popular platform, and therefore it does get targeted, the plugins will need to be updated. You will essentially need a full-time member of your team running all of those updates. Now, if you bring in an equivalent setup on something like HubSpot, HubSpot has, as we've already said, an enormous number of tools and functionality straight out of the standard implementation. If you work with an agency like us as well, we can enrich that even further in terms of the initial implementation of what you will get. But essentially, you get a system that doesn't need updates, that's already got all of the security you're going to need, and importantly, is far more user-friendly because it has been built, crafted, as we said, not cobbled together as a single product. It's not got loads of third-party plugins that need different types of authorization that you need to jump into a different section to get to the settings. It is a single system with all of that functionality in one place. So when we're talking about your end users, they can be much more familiar with how it works, and they can actually use the tools without the requirement of a developer who's kind of a WordPress developer coming in and constantly updating things or adding new plugins. I think that's fundamentally is the biggest gain between the two platforms. On top of that, we can talk about built-in SSL. We can talk about the fact that you can run your domains through it. There's loads of technical reasons why HubSpot is a very solid CMS. But they are more kind of the features you would expect to be getting with your CMS rather than standout exciting features.
I think I would say for a leader looking at the comparison, you've touched on a lot of underlying factors there. The real thing is total cost of ownership of WordPress is a lot higher than you think it is when you start actually digging into what you're spending money on, whether that be the updates, whether that be paid for plugins, whether that be your expensive hosting, having to have a separate content delivery network because it's really slow. So there's the cost, the cost of ownership, but I also think there's a performance cost, and the performance cost is if you are running, I think is it 38 on the recent count, 38 on average plugins per WordPress site. So people are having to run all these plugins. I mean, we're talking about plugins for a form. Do you know what I mean? Form plugins, a plugin to run Google Analytics, a plugin just to, make sure that you lock down your IP address to just the country that you want the people to administer it in, so you're not having it hacked from all around the world. All of those things build up to a problem with things like performance. And you've got the speed penalty if you've got loads of complications in the back end. Necessarily, if it's going off and it's doing data calls and things like that, you have a speed penalty. You also have a speed penalty when it comes to if you're using a flexible page builder, which, a low cost web designer might use something which is a bit drag and droppy, and how many marketing leaders actually look at the source code of their site and actually go, oh, my word, there's thousands of lines of styling in the body of the page, which then means that the browser's having to render styling off the page rather than loading in one or two style sheets, which then goes across the whole site. So you've got this whole problem, and this is not even before you get onto A/B testing, smart performance and things like that. So you've got this total cost of ownership, which is higher but typically hidden from view because it's not a single invoice that you're paying. And then you've got this massive performance penalty, which basically means if your competitors are running Content Hub, they're beating you, and they're getting your revenue. And I think that like marketing and revenue leaders have got to really wake up to, hold on, why are we still on WordPress? And it's really interesting because I still talk to people now when we're talking about Content Hub, and invariably, if it's a pitch process, we will be saying, you should use this. Here's all the technological reasons. Here's all the performance reasons. Here's total cost of ownership reasons. And if it's a pitch with 3 or 4 agencies on it, we're usually the only ones saying use this technology, and 3 of them are saying use WordPress. And I get asked the question, why are they telling us that WordPress is better when you're telling us it's absolutely not? And I figured it out, and I figured it out with the help of a friend of mine who's a plumber. And I'll tell you what it is, right? Because, so my friend fits Valiant boilers. And, well, in fact, I better not mention the make of the other very popular boiler manufacturer in the UK. But he's not typical. He fits them. They work really well. I had one fitted, and nothing went wrong with it for, I think, 18 years or something like that, right? And he was saying, because I was saying, well, why don't you use this other make? And he went, well, because all the other plumbers are recommending it. And he said, yeah, well, you know why they recommend it, don't you, Tim? He said, because after 2 years, when the warranty's gone, it's going to start breaking. And your plumber that fitted it, you'll phone him up and you'll say, oh, something wrong with my boiler, and he'll come along and he'll go, oh yeah, I fixed it for you, and he'll give you a bill for a couple of £100, and he'll keep doing that, every 6, 12 months or whatever. But by fitting that boiler that starts breaking, the plumber knows that he's going to get a great, ongoing revenue stream, because it's not his fault that the boiler broke. It's the technology that you bought it. Whereas you could buy this other technology, which is really good, and then the plumber doesn't get any work for 18 years other than coming in and periodic checking it and going, yeah, it's all fine. And I realized that that's the reason why agencies are still pushing WordPress, because then they get money for hosting. Oh, and we're going to, charge you for a content delivery network. Oh, by the way, your SSL's coming up for renewal. We need to get that for you. All these updates that, there's more and more updates. Backups off, you're going to need a offline backup as well as mirroring on your server if you're doing it right. These are all chargeable services, which are all going to the agency that built the website. So they're really incentivized to actually not sell the best, the most robust technology. That's my thinking behind it. It's a bit cynical.
No, it makes sense.
Yeah, so thanks be to the honest plumber that told me what went on with boilers. But I mean, we talked a little bit about the differences there. It's pretty easy though, in terms of, you know, if people are looking at a new site, going from WordPress to HubSpot, you don't actually have to have all of the other HubSpot jiggery pokery, do you?
No, yeah, you can go buy into Content Hub as a standalone. Um, it's it's not something we see people tend to stick with because there's so many other cool tools that you can get with HubSpot, and actually they've now started offering this this bundle with Marketing Hub, which I think is a really good idea and really kind of lowers the the kind of the threshold for people to be able to buy into the tools of HubSpot. But yeah, you can
Yeah,
absolutely come in with Content Hub on top of the free CRM, and you'll have these AI tools. You'll have all of the
yeah,
stuff we talked about. And yeah, it's not a huge kind of undertaking to shift into HubSpot.
yeah. Because you get, with the seats model, you get seats. With Content Hub, you can put the CRM then in place, because the CRM connects with, you know, whatever else you might say. Your sales team might be using another platform. We've got our really smart now system to connect any two APIs as well, so
Yeah,
that, you know, we can basically plug Content Hub and the core CRM into any other CRM, so we can have that two-way data exchange and things. So it's really, you know, if somebody says, well, we, you know, Salesforce is our core CRM, we don't want to move away from that, it's not a problem, is it really?
no, it's funny actually. HubSpot and Salesforce, particularly, have been partners and friends for a long time. So actually, they've got an out of the box integration. It works really well, and I think that's another thing that perhaps WordPress benefited from years. HubSpot is becoming a real standard for people who are creating web apps, people who are looking for ecosystems that are growing, that are you know exciting
On the
places for developers to be putting their apps, and HubSpot is
Yeah,
definitely that, and it is becoming more and more that, and it does mean that there's great connectivity options. It does mean that there are kind of integrations and things that can make it a lot more seamless and a
yeah,
lot less painful to fit into your
yeah,
existing tech stack.
yeah. I mean, it's probably worth actually twisting the knife now we've shoved it into WordPress, but there's a big difference as well about the way that apps and you know, additional things, because there is a marketplace for HubSpot, for the Content Hub, because you can buy an off-the-shelf theme and you can buy functional updates. In fact, I was talking to some developers this week when I was at the HubSpot European headquarters, and the validation that they have to go through. If you want to put something on the HubSpot marketplace, you have to get validated. You have to prove it's working. You have to. They have a whole back end. HubSpot manage a back end complaints procedure in case any customers raise issues about these third party developers. And then you look at the other side, and you look at WordPress. It's the Wild West. It's like going down the flea market and a guy opening up a suitcase and going, "Hey, I've got a WordPress plugin. Do you fancy buying it?" You don't know whether he's going to be there next week to support it when it falls over, or the core's
No, exactly.
updated. So
And the structure of sometimes how WordPress plugins are created, and as we said, they're not necessarily vetted or controlled. You can jump in and find that you've suddenly got dozens new style sheets, and it's confusing if you're a marketer to actually use them. I think
yeah,
the way that HubSpot have built their ecosystem means that you've got very clear kind of understanding of where this app has come from, who's
yeah,
created it, what reviews it's got. You feel very confident. It's not like with WordPress where you can go to a developer's website, download the bits and pieces required to put into your FTP server to run the plugin, and actually it's never gone near WordPress, but it does work that way. And I think that just heads towards all sorts of chaos when pretty much
mm,
anybody can be installing
yeah,
anything without really knowing.
yeah,
Fundamentally, it might work perfectly right now. Is it
yeah,
going to be updated? Is it going to continue to work?
yeah,
That's always a problem.
yeah, yeah. It's a roll of the dice. I think
Yeah.
if you do if you've got your site on WordPress, it's a roll of the dice. And I over the years and years, because I mean, fair play, you know, you don't get to be the world's most popular CMS by not having a load of good stuff about it. But every dog has its day, and the thing that gives me the fear, particularly at the moment with security being so important, and you know, you've got to look after people's data. It's just the vulnerability sometimes of WordPress, and you know, I was talking to a company in the medical space. I won't mention their name. Just literally a few weeks ago, and you know, they wanted us to talk about potential for their new website and what could they do. And I walked them through and they're really excited, and I was then got onto the highlighting, you know, things that you should change about your website, and then I showed them a screenshot of the website with Russian casino information on it, and they were horrified. And I went, you didn't, I said, I'm guessing you didn't know this was there because you would have taken it down straight away. And luckily the space between me, you know, having that initial conversation, the presentation was a matter of a few days, and I didn't hold back on not telling them. But this is the thing, that they've got this site, they're in this very sensitive area of medical, and their WordPress site's been hacked. Yeah. And nobody knew, nobody was looking after it. Do you pay somebody? Yeah, we pay somebody to update it. Well, they're clearly not updating it frequently enough. And then they said, well, you know, how should we sort it out? I said, well, you need to go back to an offline backup of the whole site and restore from that point. And they were just like, I don't even know whether they've been doing that. And you just think, you know, you can't in this day and age put your company reputation, your main lead gen engine, you know, in the firing line and risk so much just by, you know, using the wrong technology and not looking after it. So yeah, really interesting. So time is cracking on. I mean, it's pretty straightforward to move. I mean, we've done migrations, we've done lift and shifts where we've just gone WordPress to HubSpot Content Hub. Although I prefer it, if you're going to spend the time and effort to rebuild a site, unless it's been recently done and optimized and being thought through, I tend to say to people, let's actually do a redevelopment. But that's the way to get on it, isn't it? You don't want to do some kind of half-hearted, just get it in and start fiddling around with it around the edges.
No, I think so. And I think, you know, the structure of the site, the way it's kind of configured, and the way your prospects and your customers are going to navigate it, I think that's all really important. And I think sometimes the lift and shift, whilst it's very doable, can often just be moving part of the problem. You know, you can be moving to a better platform, but you need to give that platform the best chance possible by actually giving it a good website as well.
Yeah. Getting the, you know, because I mean, I suppose that's what's good about us. We're not just HubSpot. We know all of these other things. We know about conversion rate optimization. We've got people Nielsen Norman trained on UX. We've got the SEO skills and the technical elements in house. So you're getting more than a HubSpot implementation. You're actually getting best in class website specification planning before you even start the design phase. Well, I suppose, you know, we've got some other content around Content Hub, but I think the best thing is just take a look, isn't it? So I suppose we should be saying, give us a shout and we'll do a demo for you, shouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of tools in there that, you know, I think we talked about Content Remix. That's one of them. To be able to actually see them in use, you know, and we've got the opportunity as partners to be able to kind of demo portals that have this functionality already enabled in it. And you know, when you see that actually running in real time, and when, you know, the other one that's really exciting we haven't touched on yet is the AI blog writer. Again, it's very similar. It's the same sort of concept with Gen AI in terms of how it can produce content for you, but again, it's the thought process behind how marketers actually like to work, and it allows you to go through and structure your subheadings and really actually say, no, this is how I want my blog to be, not just let the AI spit out, you know, 800 words on whatever it fancies. You can actually go through and say, I want this structure, these keywords, these subheadings. it's, you know,
I,
it's really impressive.
I'm so glad. Like that's how much AI is in HubSpot
Yeah,
system,
it's
right?
so much.
Yeah, that I nearly forgot all about that, which is built in, which is you really have to see it to believe it because it is so granular, the control. It's not
Yeah.
like just, say ChatGPT, write me a blog on X. It's so much more than that. That I nearly forgot all about it, which is incredible.
Yeah, and what's crazy is when we've been playing with it as well, we've taken that functionality, created a blog, and then put that into Content Remix and said, now make me a campaign around that. So you've suddenly got AI writing landing pages and blogs about a blog it wrote, and it is bonkers, but it is.
Yeah, it's really good. Well, as I say, I mentioned that I've been to the HubSpot European headquarters just this week, actually, and interestingly, they were talking. There's more than 80 features within the HubSpot thing that have already got AI built into them. 80 across the different hubs, and the rate of change they were talking about is is ever increasing. Really interesting, and that's the other thing. People sign up to HubSpot software. They get this stuff, these new features, as part of their subscription. There's no like,
Yeah.
oh, if you want to upgrade to version 2.0, you got to pay some more money. It comes along, so you're keeping up to date. So yeah,
Yeah,
lots
I think
to
it's
think
very
about.
interesting. I think when you look at AI as a topic, you know, recently Apple have done all their big announcements around AI, and they're getting that into their systems. It's very interesting when you look at these types of companies that they're not necessarily the first to market with the AI. They're not necessarily powering their own AI, but they are implementing it very thoughtfully. They're actually thinking about how humans want to interact with these tools.
Yeah,
And I think the result is noticeably better.
yeah. Well, I think I mean, we do this on the implementation of AI in the marketing and revenue sphere. A lot of what the IV team do is actually about change management, about the human aspects of technology, because at the end of the day, it should be about augmenting the roles, not about replacing the roles. And I think we really do a lot of good assistance there with clients to help them understand, because there's so much going on. It's very difficult to know all of the things. So yeah, we started to digress. We could talk about, we could go on and we could do another one. In fact, we'll do another one on the latest bits and pieces of AI, but not for now. It's been a real pleasure, Chris. Very quickly, top 3 reasons to take on Content Hub. Going to put you under pressure. Top 3 reasons to implement Content Hub today.
Yeah, so we've spoken about some of these features, but for me, the Content Remix, as I said, you have to see it to believe it. But I think the workflow of how that actually functions, I think it will unlock a lot of omni-channel campaigns for people. We've got an ever-expanding digital world where marketers are struggling to stay on top of all the different platforms and requirements for those platforms. I think a tool like this is really needed. We mentioned it right at the very end just now, AI blog writer. Again, I just think it's really clever. I think it's really well thought through. And I like the little graphic that comes up whilst you're waiting for it to finalize your blog. Good time to go and make a cup of tea. So those two for sure. And do you know what? I was really impressed by the audio file AI thing that comes up with the lifelike transcript. I think that's really clever. Feeds into this whole podcast world, which is obviously having a really big resurgence at the moment. And I think again, it's very lifelike. It's almost scarily good. But those would be my 3. I think they are all designed to drive kind of the efficiency across multiple channels. So if you're looking as a leader for a reason behind all of this, it's about scaling your current marketing efforts, but keeping in check things like your brand tone of voice we mentioned at the very beginning. This is just a way of being efficient and scalable and keeping the qualities that make your organization what it is today, I would say.
I'm sorry, but I wouldn't pick those 3. I'd pick the
Go on then.
I picked Content Remix, absolutely slam dunk. It's a game changer. You have to see it to believe it, because omni-channel, yeah, cross-threading on ABM campaigns, it's just going to be a game changer. But I think it's actually ease of use of the whole platform is just miraculous and a game changer in itself. But personalization, you can't get away from personalization. It's going to become a requirement, not a luxury. And this is by far and away the best personalization platform outside of an e-commerce system that I've seen by country mile. So
agreed.
We talked a lot. It's been really good. I hope people listening or watching, if they're on YouTube, have found it really interesting. I know I'm very excited about Content Hub. I know Chris is. If you've enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe, provide a review, tell your friends, but tell your family if they're in marketing leadership as well. And Chris, thank you very much to you to wrap it up.
Thank you very much, Tim.